people feel a sense of hopefulness when they hear that there are two pieces. Yes, you got to listen to yourself and your gut and what feels right. But I also want you to have like the proof and the data, making sure you're going to get to the place you want to go. And I think that empowers people.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 190 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast, where today I got to sit down with my coach, Kelsey Murphy. I can't even tell you. I'm still a little bit excited. I have to be totally straight with you guys. I so love working with Kelsey, and I feel so lucky to have coaches like her in my life. You're about to find out why, because you're probably going to fall in love with her too. But there's this unique combination that Kelsey has, and I really had her dive into it in the podcast episode. But she has this ability to allow those of us with big, huge hearts, those of us who cry every day, right? Really big hearts, people who really want to make a difference in the world. All of the women you've probably heard on this podcast before, times you've heard me burst into tears on the podcast, right? She allows all of us to be that way as coaches, to really feel what it is to care about other people and to want to, quote unquote, just help, right? There's so many times I hear women say that. They'll say that to me, like, Sarah, I can't charge people for this work because it helps them, which is so interesting that we get caught in that little vortex. And I think what Kelsey does, and I told her today on the episode, I think this is her secret sauce, but what she does is she allows us to keep that peace while learning how to be pragmatic, learning how to implement data, understanding what those numbers are actually telling us, which then allows us to actually protect our hearts. And it can feel really counterintuitive, but I really hope you listen in for how she talks about that, because she does it in such a way that is so easy to follow, easy to understand. And as she speaks, every single time she speaks, I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. She's just one of those people you go, yeah, that makes sense. So I hope you enjoy that piece of it. But I also want to talk a little bit about Kelsey's journey. A lot of times when someone starts to have really big financial success in their business, people think, oh, that happened really quickly, or, oh, they don't really know what they're doing, or they must have scammed someone. And I love the way Kelsey talks about the journey, how long it actually took, what she experimented with to get there. So good and so relatable. Just keep an ear out for her Thanksgiving dinners, because boy, can we all relate to those. All right. So if you have been thinking about coaching, or if you have a really truly heart-centered business and you're not sure it can ever make money, you're really going to love today's conversation, because it's down to earth, it's exciting, and it's also something you feel like you can start doing right now. And I think that's so important that we all feel that when we're inspired, there's actions for us to take. All right. So pop in those earphones and enjoy this interview with my coach, Kelsey Murphy. Kelsey, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I can't believe you're here today. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to be here. This is such a fun hour in my schedule. I'm like, oh, I'm going to sip coffee and sit and chat with Sarah. It's the best.
Oh my gosh. But it kind of feels like I feel like the kid who's got to talk to their teacher for real. And I'm like, she's really here. She's really here.
I love it. It's an absolute honor.
So good. So good. So in talking about what we could really share today, I mean, I think it's so fun. I think so often people are like, what is it really like to have a coach? Really? What really happens? And so I thought it might be fun as coach and coachee for us to just sort of share the types of conversations we've had together. But before we get to that, I think what I would really love to do is have you share sort of your offer journey, right? Because you have so many things that you're good at. You have so many things you could share, and you have done this amazing thing with your business by narrowing it down and focusing. And I'm just going to turn it over to you and share, what have you learned? How did this happen? What are your biggest takeaways over the last couple of years?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love it. Well, agree. I'm so excited to be here. And I feel like it is very rare to have a coachee, kind of pull back the curtains and be like, this is what our conversations are really like, I feel like they should be this beautifully orchestrated thing, and it's messy and organic. And so, yeah, I'm so excited to share that. I really believe in transparency, and I learned that I believe in that. After I got together with my husband, really, I realized that I thought honesty was like a value of mine. Like I really like honest people, but like what I realized, it's like I really like transparent people, like people that like girls that like I would go into the bathroom with, and I'd be like, I love your shirt. And they'd be like, well, let me tell you where I got it. And like, let me tell you about the story behind, like just super honest and open and transparent, like there's no smoke and mirrors. And it's one of the things that made me fall in love with my husband. He was just like so openly transparent of like, this is what you see is what you get. And I was like, I love it. It's not perfect, but it is like so attractive that you're like, this is it. This is fully me on like a platter. And I've noticed as I grow into my business, the people that I really gravitate towards and like working with Marie Forleo, working with, like Cathy Heller and Amy Porterfield and those women, they have really nice, shiny personas, And so for me, I'm like, that's cool, but I actually am not going to love this business unless I know about your skeletons in the closet and like I approve of those skeletons, right? Like those skeletons feel like normal skeletons, right? Like, or they're ownable skeletons, or you're willing to be like, yeah, these were some mistakes I made, or this is who I am, like this is the highs and the lows of like what I go through on a day-to-day, like experience. So that's why I really like Marie and I love Cathy and I love Amy. They're very honest and open. And so even though they have these shiny personas, you get in and you have these real conversations with them and they're very transparent, right? So it's one of the things I love about you and like our conversations. They will be brutally transparent sometimes, right? We're just like, let's just call a spade a spade. Like this is going to work. This isn't going to work. Like this feels right. It doesn't feel right. The quicker you can get to that in a business, in a relationship, I feel like the quicker you get to like the root and the soul of who you are as friends, as whether you're going to connect and work together, whether there's chemistry. So for me, like that's really important. And when I tell my story about like how I ended up getting to where I did, it's so important that I'm as transparent as possible. People are asking questions about money, and like, how much did you make those first few years? How long did it take you? And I'm like, I don't feel like anyone really shares that. It's so important to know that like, no, I was not making my money my first year. And no, I didn't have someone else funding me. Like I wasn't married. I didn't have, my husband like filling up our bank account. Like, no, I had to be financially independent and I wanted to start a coaching business and I was not making any money. So what was I going to do? Right. And I had to freelance and I had to go dip into my other career and say, ooh, can I pick up a couple freelance jobs here or there? And I kind of swallow my pride and do it for a few years, right? Until my business was standing on its own 2 feet. And I always had to be in charge of my own finances. Like standing on its own 2 feet was like making a significant amount of income. Like I needed to make enough income for myself, for my retirement, for my savings, to possibly help my family out, right? So it wasn't like I was just like, oh, let's just start this hobby business. It was like, no, this has got to be the real deal. And I was coming from advertising and I was in the advertising world. I was a director for Nintendo and Elizabeth Arden and all these really cool fancy pants places, right? And so I was making a really good paycheck and it sounded super legit when I went home and I was at Thanksgiving and people were like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm the advertising director for Nintendo. They'd be like, dang. I was like, I know. And inside I was like, I hate it. But like, but it sounds really good. Like my high school, right? Yeah, my high school friends are like, Kelsey made it. And I'm like, I'm miserable. And I wasn't fully miserable, but I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. I knew there wasn't a future for me to have freedom with my kids and like still make that kind of money and feel confident like I was like really doing something good for the world. Like none of that was falling into place. And so then when I like switched over to like being a life coach, I was like, oh, the shame of like, joining this wild, wild west of an industry of being like showing up to Thanksgiving, and having them be like, wait, what do you do now? You quit your job and you're a what? A life coach, And I'm like, yes, like with burying my head in my hands. Like, I think people think like I became this coach and I was instantly successful. And then I just like walked into Thanksgiving and was like, look at me, I'm an entrepreneur making all this money. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. Like I hid behind the curtains for many years, just kind of like shuffling around what I was. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of a life coach or I'm kind of a career coach. And the reality was I was trying to figure out what I loved to do. What was that intersection for me between love and money, right? Like something I love, something I want to put out in the world. And then the thing that I could be really known for that could bring in the kind of financial stability I wanted. And sometimes that just takes certain people longer than others, right? Like I couldn't do the job full time because I still needed to bring in some money elsewhere. I'm not a doer. Like my friend and client, Kelly Levesque from Be Well by Kelly. She is such a doer. Like that girl, we will talk on the phone and she'll just like throw spaghetti against the wall and be like, I don't know, I was just figured I'd write a book. So I'm just going to write like 3 best-selling books and I'm just going to fly to New York next weekend. And I'm like, girlfriend, like this is a skill you have, like this ability, this courage to just go out and try it. It is beautiful and amazing. And it's not something I was born with. I was not born with that. It's not that I can't cultivate that and I haven't cultivated a little bit of it, but in general, I'm an overthinker, right? Like I'm a coach. I internalize everything. I want to know the deep rooted meaning of it, right? Like I'm just like, oh, like, and so it's a wonderful quality. Yet when you're trying to build a business, the agony that you go through of like, am I meant to be a life coach? Am I meant to be a career coach? Am I meant to be a business coach? Like when you have a love for all of these different things and you're truly multi-passionate can really slow you down, right? So for me, the first few years were slow in the upstart of what am I going to do? And so I really tiptoed around life coaching and then I help people with career coaching. I always let people know like, dude, I got my life coaching certification. I got certificates in positive and motivational psychology and emotional intelligence in business and marketing. Like I got so many little mini certifications because I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And then when I went out and I coached people, I would test all these different niches. Like did some relationship coaching. I did retirement coaching. I mean, like I at one point stopped coaching and went to like massage therapy orientation. Like I got all the way to the orientation and like sat there in massage therapy school looking around being like, oh, this is not for me. Like,
not the thing. I didn't know that, Kelsey. That's
my gosh. Like I genuinely believe like you won't know if you're meant to do it or not until you at least take a little bit of action towards it. Right. And so I tested all these little things out and to see what was that intersection for me, the place that I could really plant my flag, fall in love with, and then created that true stream of income that wasn't hard, wasn't like pushing a boulder up a hill, that income that came in that felt easy, that felt in flow, right? And it took me a while to figure that out. So I really leaned into career coaching for a while because it was a lot of folks that were just like me that were like, I'm trying to figure my way out of this job. And I'm like, dude, I feel you. Like, let me tell you about my Thanksgivings. Like, and so then they would come out, they would quit their jobs or they would, have this new sense of freedom and they'd want to start businesses. And so I would help them like set up the foundations for their businesses. I'd be like, okay, this is how you quickly create a really minimum viable product website. And this is how you write some pretty good copy. Cause that's all the things that I was studying. Like I was learning how to do copy. I was learning how to build these websites and track them and figure out where people are coming from and then how you could get clients. So they were kind of people that were maybe a year or two behind me. Right. Okay. And they were just like following the same kind of footsteps in the path that I was doing, that I was having success with. But what ended up happening was I did kind of career coaching and then leaned into that new business coaching, right? Little online businesses. And that's when I started working with Forleo. And she had me come in and start coaching people in B school on their small businesses. And it was so interesting when I started to do that. Like it puts you on this platform, right? Where I'm talking to thousands and thousands of people on these coaching calls. And they started kind of coming to me for 2 things. Really, they started asking about my podcast. And I'm like, my podcast, like that thing that I started in my closet with like my little $50 Amazon mic. What? And they were like, how did you do it? We were joking because before we got on this, I flipped on my mic and I was like, do I sound smooth like peanut butter? And Sarah's like, yes, you do. Like, and they were like, how do you get such good sound quality? I'm like, I'm literally in my closet. It's like, I can teach you how to do this. So the questions that came in were about my podcast. And then the other questions that came in were, how did you start up this coaching business that we're all really scared to do and actually get sustainable clients? Because we can start a coaching business, but like we're not getting the clients, right? We're not like, it feels like a little one here, one there, a one off, and it doesn't feel like I can make a consistent income. So those were the two areas when I would show up on these calls for Marie, people kept asking me about. And then I would go in the back end and Marie's team, people would start like tagging me and be like, hey, Kelsey, there's a podcast question or there's a coaching question. And I was like, okay, like it looks like there's some expertise or specialties. Now, I won't say it was instantly like, oh, these are my specialties, because as a coach, I'm like, no. I can coach on so many other things besides just these. I don't want to be pigeonholed into these two things, right? And I, had a lot of heart to hearts with like my own business coach and other friends. And they were like, Kelsey, we love you, but we don't know what to refer people to you for. Like you can do everything. And so, right. And so they're like, we're not referring people to you because you're not like a one ownable expert. And so that's when I was like, okay, you know what? This year I'm going to own podcasting. I'm just going to take podcasting. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to teach people how to podcast. I'm going to create a course around it. That's going to be my year project. And after a year, I will see how I feel about that. And that was a year I probably made the most money at that time in my business. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is why you focus on one thing, because that is where the momentum comes. The amount of referrals I got that year was through the roof because everyone was like, oh, you want to start a podcast? Go to Kelsey. Like it was so clear how to refer me. And so I did that for like a year, made a significant amount of money, and realized when someone said to me, hey, Kelsey, we want you to come speak. It was like PodFest or one of these big podcasting conferences. They were like, Kelsey, we want to refer you to go speak here. We know the person putting it on and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, it's okay. And they literally looked at me and they're like, no, I'm sorry. You're not really allowed to say no to this. Like, this is a big deal. Like, we don't just kind of refer anybody. And I was like, I don't want to stand on the stage and talk about podcasting. Like, and it was like in that moment, I had this kind of come to Jesus moment where I was like, oh, you're not going to want to lean in as the podcasting expert for the next 5 to 10 years. And that's okay. But like, what would you want to lean into? And it was instantly like, coaching. I could talk about coaching for hours, the empathy that goes behind coaching, the way coaches are built, the fact that breaks my heart that coaches are not successful from a financial standpoint because they're missing the tools to build that business part of their structure. Like they know how to coach. They're wonderful in those sessions. They can sit and they could coach anyone in a coffee shop with their eyes closed, but they can't build this sustainable business. So you have all these wonderful, empathetic, big-hearted humans that are not successful out in the world. And I'm like, no, F that. That is truly when they say like, what are the things that keep you up at night or make you so angry? That makes me feel like, no, something's not right in the world, because these people, these communicators are the ones that could stop wars. Like they could make people feel seen and heard. And yet they can't have successful businesses, so they give up or they don't get to do it. And I'm like, no, I can teach you how to have a successful business, and I can do it in a very simple, minimalist way. Come on over here, right? And then that's when I built the Coaches Mastermind. And it was like the first time I made like multiple 6 figures in one day. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the thing for me. And then I've been doing that one, ever since.
Yeah. I mean, you literally like that proof was in that pudding real quick.
like immediately.
Oh
like I tell people that program, like I decided, I think it was like on a Thursday, and I just spent the whole weekend just building the sales page. And I think I launched it the next week. And like we did like 2 weeks of launching and then it was there. And it was like the most successful program. So it wasn't something I sat and mulled over. It was just this really true organic, like, no, these are the people I want to talk to and serve. And I'm going to create a program really quickly and put it out there and see how it goes. Right. And like, look and see if there's proof that this is something that people want. And it was immediate, you know?
Yeah. And I think that, to be honest, Kelsey, I think that's part of your secret sauce. Like, I think it's one of the reasons I chose you as my coach, because you don't make anything hard. I think the very first thing I ever heard you say was, I don't do overwhelm. And if it's not easy, I'm not doing it. And I was like, I want that one. That's the one. So get her over here right now.
I have too many kids to do complicated things, right? Like, we have to simplify this.
You do, but you do it with such care. I mean, if you listen to that, honestly, like, it's so awesome the way that you just shared that in a podcast episode. But that was, I mean, how many years did that actually span, that journey of like, oh, I can make money at this. Oh, but this is another thing that I don't want for the rest of my life. How long was that journey between, okay, oh, I'm known for podcasting, but I don't want to be known for podcasting. Let me launch the Coaches Mastermind.
The journey of like tiptoeing around coaching and just building my one-on-one practice took a solid 2 years. But that was when I was tiptoeing around like career coaching and kind of hustling. That's when I first got my foot in the door at Twitter and Facebook, and when like landed those workshops and like was able to speak at those events and was like, yes, this is what I want. I want to get in with these bigger named companies, and I want to work with people that are looking for fulfillment in their careers, right? Whether that's career transition, whether that's career fulfillment, like that was like my sweet spot. So it took me about 2 years, and I was able to build that up to like a full-time practice. And I was like, okay, awesome. But it's inevitable this happens. As soon as you build something, you hit your first goal. My question then became like, well, do I really want to only work with one-on-one and these small little groups and workshops? Or do I want to build something a little bit more sustainable and passive? Do I want to build these bigger groups, right? And of course, I was like, yes, let's explore it. Let's figure that out. And so it was probably like 2 years to build that practice. And then I probably lived in that practice for another 2 years. I just had this really easy one-on-one practice. Was like right when I had my first kid, you know, I was just hanging out. It was super fun, you know? And then I did podcasting for about 12 to 18 months, like podcasting 12 to 18 months. That was the time frame when I made a lot of money in that specific niche. And then, like I said, it was weeks within the time that coaching niche took off. I've been doing that coaching niche for probably like 3-4 years now. So it's like, yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, I think I stalked you. I'm not exactly sure, but I think I did. And then I remember the first time I signed up for something, I was so excited. The second you opened the door, I hope I was the first one, but the second you opened the door, I was like, Kelsey, I just signed up, and you're on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. It was probably 3 a.m. for you. You're like, yeah, I got it. I got it, lady. I got it. There's something about the fact that it only took a couple of weeks. I mean, I think it's important for people to hear how hard you had worked on other things. It's not like you're like, I'm going to just open a flower shop tomorrow. Like, you really knew what you were doing. You asked all the right questions. But what do you think it is in you? I have an opinion on this, but what do you think it is in you that has people know that you're like such a safe place to land, is probably the best way for me to say that. And I think for coaches, that's so important, right? There's like that lack of judgment. There's that safety. But what do you think it is in you that had you be able to create that in 2 weeks and like have it be that financially successful?
That's such a good question. I mean, I think there's a couple things that made that so successful. Well, I think one, there's that transparency piece where I'm very honest with people. Like, I think people see my business and they see that I have 3 kids and I have this great relationship with my husband, and it feels very easy. I talk about a minimalist business. And then I'm also like, hold on, let me tell you about my hard days. Like, do you know I was crying? Like I was telling you before I got on this podcast, I literally had a therapy appointment, and I'm like, is this video? Because I'm going to need some mascara. Because trust me, like I'm not putting mascara for any therapy appointment. You know, like I just feel like being really open and honest with people about like the people on my team, the amount of money I'm spending on Facebook ads, right? The amount of money that I'm spending on expenses and what that breakdown looks like. I think people get a sense of that and know that I'm going to be as openly honest as I can feel comfortable being, right? And that's my own journey of that level of comfort, right? I think the more and more comfortable I get as a human, the more open it gets, right? So every year I get more transparent with people on all different levels. So I think that makes people feel a little bit safe when someone else is vulnerable and honest. They feel a place where they can come be vulnerable and honest. So I think that's one thing. Another thing that I get a lot is that people do like the balance between my kind of like life coachy, like open, warm, safe space, but it's balanced also with this other piece of like data-driven, tough love conversations, right? Like I'm very much like, I love that that's your idea. So what data do you have to support that? And people are like, no, it just feels right in my gut. And I'm like, amazing. That's really important. And also, what's the data? Like, and they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, let me teach you how to collect data to make sure that this offer is actually going to hit the number that you're hoping it's going to hit. Because here's what's going to happen from an emotional perspective. If you're not prepared for that and you're going in and you're like, this is my goal to get 15 people in this program, but we have no data to help us like create that number, like I'm going to be like, okay, so how many people are we emailing? How many people are we going to get to say, okay, I'm interested, and maybe hop on a phone call with you? And out of that, what conversion rate are we looking at there? Out of people that get on the phone with you, can you convert 50% of them, 70%, 30%? So how do we get to that number 15? Like I want to reverse engineer a plan for you, because once we reverse engineer a plan, you might be like, okay, I was going to email 30 people, but now I got to email 60. I got it. I got it. At least you're more prepared and you're like, cool, I was going to block off one day for that. I got block off 2 now. Like, more what the work that you have to put into to get the results. Versus if you don't and you're just kind of just throwing darts in the dark, then all of a sudden you only get 7 people in, or you only get 5 people in, and your brain then says, oh, it's because of me, or it's because of the offer. And you're going to go into this tailspin of trying to tweak something or change something that I'm like, no, your offer could be great. You could be great. Maybe we just didn't get enough people on the line in the first place, right? Or maybe there's some place in there that conversion should be higher. Maybe when you get people on the phone, you're only converting, like 3 out of 7 people. Hold on. You should be converting at least 5 out of 10, if not 7 out of 10. What are you saying to them? Let's look at that script. Like, let's write you something different. So for me, I think people feel a sense of hopefulness when they hear that there are 2 pieces. Yes, you got to listen to yourself and your gut and what feels right. And we got to create that space to hear, to block out the noise of social media and other people and tune into you. But I also want you to have like the proof and the data behind making sure you're going to get to the place you want to go. And I think that empowers people to say, oh, got it. I have a piece missing here that Kelsey's going to help me learn how to do. And people I have noticed, at least my people, they like to have both of those pieces. So that tends to be something that when people come into like my programs, it's one of the first things I hear. They're like, I like that I'm going to get both of those things from you. I don't want one or the other, Kelsey. I need them both. And I'm like, good, because you're going to get them whether you like it or not. Like, I'm sorry.
I always love your attitude that like, that's nice. I'm going to do this with you anyway. But I think the part that I love that you do with data that I think is so important is the way that you say that the data actually ends up protecting your emotions and heart in the long run anyway, right? It's like, I think so many because coaches, I mean, please, do we cry every day and we love everyone we see and we want to save the world all the time. And so it's like, we have these huge hearts and it's like, I don't want to see data. Like, ew, that's numbers. That's like what other people do. And I think the way that you marry those to say, no, those actually protect your heart even more so you can go do more. I think you're one of the first people I've ever heard really talk about it that way and bring it out that way for coaches. I think you're right. I think that's your secret sauce. I really do. I love it.
I'm going to like take notes from here. I'm going to be like, well, now I have a whole new sales page I can create because Sarah just helped me figure it out.
You heard it here. You just take it. Yeah. No, I think it's true though, Kelsey. And I think when we look at coaches, and I love the way you talk about how it keeps you up at night that so many coaches fail. We know that data is a big missing piece of that. Is there anything else that you would like if you could go back to Kelsey scared at Thanksgiving, right? Like that version of coach, right? And just be like, actually, this is one of the things you can do to sort of like make sure you're successful. Is there anything outside of data that you would, what advice you would give someone who's like thinking of becoming a coach right now and they're a little bit scared?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going back to sweet little Kelsey sipping on her little rosé at Thanksgiving,
What?
surrounded by Aunt Sharon and, like my Uncle Rex. I would say if you're just kind of like in a place, whether you're just starting out or have been in the game for a while, but you're in a place where like nothing feels like it's hitting. You feel like you are working hard. You're doing what you're supposed to do, but it doesn't feel like you're getting kind of like the payoff or the benefits, I would say a couple things that help me is one, remind yourself you're in this for the long game, like this is not a one and done thing. Like as soon as you solve for this, you're going to want to solve for the next thing. And it's fun and it's exciting. But when you're in the trenches, it doesn't feel fun. It feels hard and it feels heavy. And you feel like you're constantly problem solving. But if you recognize, like, I'm not in this for the next year or the next 6 months, like I'm in this for the next 10 years. Like when you see yourself as an entrepreneur, as a coach for 10 years, and you really start to take that on, you start to think a little bit differently. It feels like it's almost like you're taking the pressure off because you're like, I'm supposed to be in year 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my season, right? Like I'm supposed to be in this year of learning. And while it might feel hard this year, if I'm in this for the long game, I know if I continue to move forward, it will be better next year, right? So remembering like you are in this for the long game, like you're not in this for the next 6 months, right? So really taking on that mentality can help. And so when you do that, you start to look at your environment and look at your days and say, well, if I'm in this for the long game, shoot, how can I make this more fun? Right? Like, how can I make this more enjoyable? And a lot of times that has to do with the people you are surrounding yourself with. Right. And so, like, I'm a big advocate of like coaches and mentors and masterminds and business besties and like those people that you can connect with that make it more fun. Like, it's so much more fun when you are reaching out to someone that has already had success, like a coach or a mentor or a friend that has already had success. And you can reach out to them and be like, dude, I'm drowning. I feel so exhausted. And they could be like, dude, I remember being there. Here's a couple thoughts, like that's sometimes all you need to get through the next few weeks. And then in a few weeks, you may be like, ooh, this is really hard. I feel like I'm drowning again. And then you can reach out to someone else or to them, or you've got your mastermind friends. Like, so your job is to remember you're in this for the long game. And how can I create an environment that makes this more fun, that makes this more enjoyable, where problem solving feels like a game, right? I can kind of gamify it. I can have these beautiful relationships. I can set up a 1 day, a year little mini retreat with my best friends, or, like be in a mastermind where I fall in love with these people and they become like family and we refer each other. Look at this as a long-term investment, a long-term project, and I think then it just becomes more fun,
No, absolutely. I remember boxing you about that at one point. I think I was in the middle of a launch and it was one of those days where I was like, oh my goodness, I can do no more things. I can network no more ways. Oh my gosh. And I went back to one of our coaching videos, right? And I had that playing in the background and you had mentioned the long game. And for me personally, Kelsey, that was huge because I am like you. I can launch something in about 30 seconds. If you tell me what, like I will get it together in 24 hours and go. Cause I know when something's like really great and I can see how it's going to work. And I love the way that you talk about experimenting, and it doesn't have to be the thing. Figure it out, like try it. You won't know until you try. I love how you talk about that. But I was in this really awful moment of going through this, slogging through, and I voxed you. I forgot I'm in this for the long game. So it took the pressure off. This one launch has to go. Like immediately you boxed me right back and you're like, that's right, sister. Long game. And I was like, thank you. And I was able to like go back and finish. It just makes such a difference to have the right people. I call it like your playmates in your sandbox. Just makes
Yes.
such a
Oh my
difference.
gosh. Right. And when you do that, you're all of a sudden, and it's such a mindfulness exercise, right? You're
Mm,
not so in the nitty gritty, kind of narrow minded, head down. All of a sudden you lift your head up. You right. And you rise up 30,000 feet and you look at your business and you look at your family and you
mm,
look at your year and you look and you just think, oh, I can't wait to talk to Sarah next year. Sarah in next December or Kelsey
mm.
in next December, right? Like you think about yourself 1 year from now and you think, oh, I can't wait to see what she does and what she thinks about how I am showing up right now. She's going to be so proud of me, right? And wow, what's next year going to look like, right? And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm not so worried about the 3 extra people I wanted to get in this launch. Like I'm going to still bust my buns for them and put it out in the universe and do
Yeah.
what I can. But the pressure, you take it off because you're like, you realize, holy crap, I'm learning so much in what I'm doing right now. I'm so proud of myself for showing up. And next year in December or whenever it is, like, I'm going to crush it even more. Like, I'm so proud of myself that I'm continuing to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. It shifts the entire experience in the moment. I love how you talk about that. Kelsey, I could honestly probably talk to you all day. This is just so awesome. I'm so happy to share you with all of our girlfriends over here at the Game On Girlfriend podcast. And everybody I know who's listening who's like, should I be a coach? Do I want to be a coach? Yes, be a coach and then go join Kelsey's mastermind, right? The coach's mastermind. I think it's one of those moments I look back on my business for sure, Kelsey, where I know everything shifted. And I think having a coach by your side is just everything. People don't recognize how powerful it is.
Yeah. The Coaches Mastermind was such a special program that
Mm,
we started. And I always say, like, depending on when people are listening to this, like, I don't know that it will always be built the way it's currently built, right? Like, right now, we have this really cool small container where it's usually only about 20 people, and we get together every week and chat, or we have like one little mini retreat a year where we all come together just for a day or two and like hang out, and people get like to have one-on-one coaching with me. Like I get to chat with you guys every month and have these little coaching sessions with you, and we Voxer daily, and it's so cool. And I feel so grateful for like the time in my business where I can build that, right?
mm,
And I don't know that it's always going to be like that, right? As you continue to grow, you have less time, and I probably won't always be able to do one-on-one coaching sessions like that with people in this program. And we're just building out the next round of it. And I think I'm still going to do like maybe 1 or 2 one-on-one coaching sessions with people, but they're becoming
mm,
less. And so each
mhm.
round we do it, you get more and more people that want to join that are on the wait list. So you have to tweak it and like make it so, but it's in right now, it's in this really sweet spot. And I feel just like really just happy and grateful. And it's
Mm.
one of those kind of like good old day feelings, like I know this is going to be the good old days of this program. And like in a
Mm.
year or two, we're going to be out of that season and on to like, the next kind of like thing. And so I'm just kind of just enjoying it right now. It's a cool program.
It really is. It really is. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. And I think, as people are hearing, as I've heard many, many times, like your ability to sort of zero in and be with people one-on-one is so powerful. Like it is so powerful. It is absolutely your superpower.
It's my happy place. So it's
Yeah.
easy. Yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. Like, yeah. I mean, I always tell people like
Yeah.
I got 1 day a week, and that's my only day I do coaching. Like I
Mhm.
never have calls any other day, right? That it's just Wednesdays. And then on those Wednesdays, I have like back-to-back coaching calls. And it is like my husband always sees me at the end of the day and he's like, dude, how do you do back-to-back calls? And like, you're so happy. Like, you're so happy. I'm like, this is what I was
This is my
born to
thing.
do, right? Like, this is my happy place. And I could talk to people about their businesses for hours and hours. And I do. And it's so nice that I can cull it all together on one day because Lord knows there's a million zoo field trips and like park dates and all these things with kids. Like you have to and want to be at. But like, I really love the coaching aspect of it.
Mhm. Well, it shows. It shows. Kelsey, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really literally could do this all day, and I'm so grateful for you spending time with us. If someone's listening in and they're like, oh, dear God, please give me more of Kelsey, where should they go to find you?
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you for having me. You are an absolute blessing in my life. And I know I've said this to you privately in Voxer, but I just think that your genius out in the world genuinely makes people better. And I have taken so many of the things that I have learned from you and shared them with other people. I've loved having you on my podcast, all the things, like we could have a big mushy love fest right here because I feel real grateful. But yeah, if people want to come jump into my world, I do have a podcast. It's called Whiskey and Work. So you can come, and Sarah has been on it. You can come listen to that. Yeah, it's fun. You can come to kelseymurphy.com. That's where like all my programs and like work with me stuff is. I have a bunch of freebies on there for people that are just getting started as coaches or people that are trying to like build new programs as coaches. And then sometimes I'm on Instagram. So you could come see me on Instagram at Kelsey Murphy. I'm always telling people you don't have to build a business on social media. So I don't do any of my sales or like big promoting on Instagram. But if you come on, I do post a lot of pictures of my children. So you will see what day-to-day life is and the chaos of like what life with like spit up all over me looks like. So it's like, if you want to see the rawness, you can come over there, but beware. Like, I feel like there's a warning,
There's another warning too. You always make coffee look so good. I don't know what you do, but every time I'm on your Instagram, I'm like, coffee, must get coffee. So good.
Right? It's, you know what? It's lifeblood when you have 3 young children. So
it's awesome. Kelsey, thank you again. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.